heard it on the news, from another source, or you've heard it firsthand experience. Either way, this needs to be stopped in an organized, professional manner. The antidote Narcan needs to be only used with healthcare professionals or emergency responders. Today I'm going to talk about why emergency responders and healthcare professionals should be the only ones to administer the Narcan, and what could happen if everyone had the availability to the antidote. And are drug addicts going to get the help that they need after they get the revival? So first, why are the only ones to administer the Narcan, the health professionals, and the emergency responders, is that the Sandusky Register says that the drug may reduce the number of deaths, but also providing easy escape routes for those who are suffering from the addiction. And more people, like I said in my last speech, they will take the Narcan, use their drugs, shoot up the heroin, then take the Narcan, and they'll be better, and they can go and get a better high. And that's going to make the drug problem in this county even worse. The Patriot Ledger states that even proponents say it's a temporary remedy that has little impact on the role of opiate addictions in Massachusetts and the nation. In Orange County, New Jersey, the authorities began to notice that there's repeat customers, which means that you will go on an emergency run and they'll be for an overdose, so then you go back, they'll go get the help they need, and then a couple weeks later you'll go to the exact same house for the same exact reason. And NBC News had a story about that, talking about the repeat customers. So if everyone had access to it, Time Magazine's stated that with overdoses killing 22,000 people each year, so more than homicide and some even more than car accidents, it's worth thinking about whether Narcan should be made over the counter nationwide. Yeah, it could save lives in the long run. Or yes, it could save lives now, but what about in the long run? What about a few years from now, whenever everybody knows that there's Narcan, there's going to be more drug addicts, and like I said, it's not going to be good for the community. The Narcan is going to be used as a safety net, and so any of us sitting here, there's a lot of stuff that's like the gateway drugs. What if we sit here and think, well, that's okay, they have the Narcan, so I'll be saved and I won't OD and die. Dr. Bertha Madras stated that drug users who aren't likely to be competent to deal with an overdose emergency. And more importantly, she says that Narcan kits may actually encourage drug abusers to keep using without an OD actually happening. And lastly, overdoses is going to get help they need after revival. So most overdose people, they don't get the proper treatment that they need after a revival. Who is to say that after they get this, they won't go home the exact same night and take the heroin again? They won't continue abusing, and it'll cause more problems to our community. The drug users is causing more harm than good. Mammoth County, the first assistant prosecutor, Mark C. Limix, is stating that a heroin overdose is a serious business and not something that can be taken lightly by users who are thinking Narcan will save the day. Because although Narcan is a lifesaver, most of the time it is not a lifesaver all the time. The only ones administering Narcan in the household, is no longer a wake-up call. People are seeing it as a safety net, and young adults like ourselves, like I said, are going to use this as a time for us to go and do whatever we want, like with hardcore drugs. And many walk out of the hospital with just treatment options and discharge papers. Ashley Gilbert from Sandusky Register says it disturbs me that the family and friends would rather obtain a container of this drug to keep handy if it's needed versus obtaining the necessary help for individuals who are suffering. So Narcan should be only administered with the healthcare professionals and emergency response people. And Narcan for everyone is seeing many lives saved, said NBC News, but how many people are actually getting the proper treatment after they are giving the revival from it? So Narcan should be only available to the healthcare professionals and emergency responders, because who knows, maybe you are the ones to see an overdose firsthand in a few years because a loved one because a loved one will know that Narcan is a safety net for them and they will try the hardcore drugs. Yeah.
Do you think there should be special exceptions to the Narcan, like if they could have it in the household, if they're under a special, I want to say a special situation? Do you think that they should be allowed to have it under special circumstances, I guess?
Maybe if you're have an elder person in your house, like with nursing homes, because like I said before, that they get the wrong medication mixed up, and so you can overdose on that, and the nursing home people will be able to give it to them.
This might be stretching it a little bit, but the DNR, like if somebody has signed like a DNR if they've been in the hospital previously, should they be able to receive the Narcan?
Like, what, can you restate that?
Like if they signed a DNR saying I don't want to be resuscitated and they came in on an overdose, do they give them the Narcan or do they not?
That I don't know. That's actually a really good question too, because that would make me think like the CPR stuff, they wouldn't want that. I don't know. I'll have to look into that one.
This may sound cruel, maybe, but why are we worried about helping people who are overdosing on illegal drugs?
That's what I think. Like, why do they do it? Especially if they're like repeat offenders and they just keep coming back, like the repeat customers. I don't know why you keep giving it to them. I feel like there should be like a one-time thing. Like if you overdose one time, it's in a record, and the next time, then sorry. Yeah.
This is kind of like my topic. Like, why are the people that they get called when they have an overdose and they're like, well, I need help or whatever. After you revive them or whatever, why aren't they sent to jail since they're doing illegal stuff?
Because when the cops get called to a run, they have to have it in their blood. If that makes sense, like the drugs and everything, or they have to actually find the needle and everything laying next to them. And sometimes because usually whenever people get high, they have friends with them, and so if they know that their friend has overdosed, they're gonna hide everything.
All right.